or welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is Vlogmas Day 3, which means that today I'm going to be doing a everything I read in 2024 video. As many of you know, I fell back into my love of reading this year. I used to be a really big reader when I was younger, and then over time I kind of just fell out of it. Just because of like having different interests and having different focuses. I've managed to read a whole 10 books this year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but for me it was a really big accomplishment considering it was one of my goals. I'm also on my 11th, which isn't going to be included in this video, just because I can't give you like a whole review on it for you guys, but I will be reviewing the 10 that I did finish and complete this year. The way I'm going to section this video is I'm going to be reviewing all 10 books. At the end I'm going to have the ones that are my favourites, so my top 5s, which either have 5-star ratings or ones that I just really enjoyed. Each book is going to have a rating and a review, which means I'm going to try my best to not spoil anything that happens in the book. But if I do accidentally say something, then I'll either cut it out or I'll put a timestamp where it's safe to watch if there's a book on my list that you want to read and not want spoiled. This is also a good time to plug in my Goodreads, which is down in the description. So if you're a book girly like me and you want to find some new book friends, or you're interested in some of the same genres as me, then go follow me down below and you can see all live updates on what I'm reading and how I found books, and we can share our goals with each other and just chat about books that we've read. Anyway, let's get on to the first book. So the first book I'm going to be reviewing is One of Us is Lying. Now this book gave me total Breakfast Club vibes. It is a like mystery thriller book and I really enjoyed it. I didn't think it was the best book I've ever read. There was some parts where I found it was quite slow and some of the stories like were dragging on a little bit, but overall I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. The 4 protagonists are in detention together with a 5th person, and unfortunately something happens where the 5th person ends up dying in this situation. So the 4 of them decide to team up while trying to go through challenges of their own in their own lives, and also trying to suss out each other, because in this book nobody's safe. Nobody you know is actually who they are. It's very friendly for teens, and if you're into thrillers or mysteries, then I'd definitely recommend this book for you. The next book I'm going to be reviewing is Hooked by Emily McIntyre. Now this book is a little bit spicy and not very friendly for young readers, so if you're anybody that's not over the age of 18, then I wouldn't recommend this book for you, just as it has got some graphic content in it. This book is inspired by the story we all know of Peter Pan. It has basically nothing to do with the actual Peter Pan story. The only thing that's Peter Pan inspired is basically the names of the characters in their book, like James Hook and Wendy Michaels. The story splits into 2, where one chapter's James and the other chapter's Wendy, so you get both sides of this romance story. It is a very dark romance book, which is why I wouldn't recommend it to young readers, but I found that it was quite interesting. This was my first dark romance that I had read, and don't get me wrong, there were some parts that I was a bit scared of, to say the least, just because I didn't expect it in a book. But it was really interesting to read, and I definitely think I'm going to start reading more of them. I've actually got the rest of the series up in my bookshelf right now. Some of the storylines seem to be a bit fluttered, and if I'm being truly honest, I was a little bit disappointed in the ending, just because it seemed to do like a whole 360, like all in one chapter. So I rated this a 3 out of 5 stars as well, but I do think it is a good book. And if you're into dark romance and fantasy, then you might be into this as well. The next book I'm going to be reviewing is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Now this is such a cosy little fluffy book. I read this around October time and Halloween, where we were just getting into autumn, the leaves were all crunchy, and it was just such a cute and cosy book to read. This book also splits into 2, with one side being about Jeannie, who is a new girl that has came into this little small town village, and Logan, who is the local farmer of this village. So it's a very cosy, cute and fluffy small romance book. There is a main storyline to the book, and it is basically just these two trying to swivel their way into their relationship with each other. There is a kind of storytelling plot with this book where there's always like different things happening but like one main line and direction. Didn't really enjoy the fact that there was like loads of little different mini stories, just because I felt like I was going from one chapter thinking about one thing and then jumping to a different thing in the next. And all I'm going to say without spoiling anything is that Logan has major issues in this book. Not anything bad, just this boy needs to see a therapist immediately. Someone get this man help. He needs help. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I don't think it was 5 was just because I think it felt dragged on a little bit with all the different storylines happening. The next book I'm going to be reviewing is Wildfire. Now this is the second out of a 3-part series by Hannah Grace, which I read the first one, Icebreaker, and I'm going to be reading Daydream next year hopefully. This book basically follows Russ and Aurora. Russ, who was a small part of the first book, basically is going to this camp where Aurora is also going, and basically they had an encounter with each other before going to this camp, didn't realise each other were going, and are now stuck in a very close distance with each other. This book basically follows their storyline and them trying to solve what they're gonna do, because obviously they're at camp, like they can't, you know, be close, they can't be romantic, however they definitely do have some complicated feelings for each other. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. The only reason it's not higher is just because I think about halfway through the book I got a little bit bored and I was kind of just waiting for something to happen, because it just kept feeling like the storylines were repeating but in different situations, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was actually an okay book. So one of the books I'm rating is unfortunately at my dad's, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's basically Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. So basically this book is a memoir about Dolly's young life, and it starts off where she starts describing her teenage years and then her transition into adulthood and then going from your 20s to your 30s. So I felt like this was such an important book to read. If you are definitely a woman in your 20s or 30s and you're just trying to get through life, you're just trying to, you know, work around friendships and relationships and socializing and jobs, like this book literally has it all, and I feel like it just pins things down to a T, especially with friendships and relationships. I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and the only reason it's not 5 is because I did try and read it before and I just kind of lost interest into the first couple of chapters. So it was a little bit of a slow read, but once you get in, like you get in, I think I finished this book in about 3 weeks, if that. It was just had me hooked. Like I wanted to know everything about this girl's life, and I wanted to know like how she was dealing with things. I wanted to know. It was like literally sitting talking to a big sister. There could not be a better book than this one to describe what it's like trying to juggle literally all aspects of your life and trying to make everything perfect all at once. So moving on, I'm going to be doing my top 5. So these are also in no particular order, but I would say that this one, Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, would be at the bottom just because this is the only one that I rated 4 stars, whereas the rest are all 5 stars. I did want to include this one in my top 5 just because I felt like this was my first like spicy romance that I read. Like I said, this is the first one in the series by Hannah Grace where it's got Wildfire and Daydream, and it follows Anastasia, who is a figure skater, and Nate, who is a hockey player, and basically a collision happens where they are forced to work together as a team but then end up kind of getting into some feelings for each other. So I found this storyline was really interesting. The only reason I'd rate this a 4 is just because there was some plot lines that just seemed a little bit random, that were just like thrown in there. I know many people have found that they didn't like this book and they didn't enjoy it at all, but I actually did, and I think it's a really interesting book, especially if you're just diving into romance and you're just starting out in like the romance and kind of like a little bit spicy section of your reading. So the first book that is 5 out of 5 is the first book I read this year, which is Solitaire by Alice Oseman. You probably know her from Heartstopper. I have not actually read any of the Heartstopper books nor watched the TV series. However, I have seen like those like fan made edits and clips of some of it, and I absolutely love and relate to Tori Spring. If you have no idea what I'm on about, basically in Heartstopper, one of the main characters has an older sibling called Tori, and she's quite isolated. She likes to keep to herself. She's given those like mysterious girl, quiet girl vibes. Nobody really knows anything about her. However, she is very like not opinionated, but she's very emotional. She has really intense like thoughts and feelings. So basically this book follows her story where she's trying to get down to discovering who Solitaire is, which is basically a thing that's going around their high school. And then along the way she meets a boy called Michael Holden, and they start to team up in trying to discover who this Solitaire is. And yeah, it was just a really interesting book. There was a lot of plot twists that I just could not see coming at all. I definitely think it's one that I'm going to reread in future as well, and possibly might also read the Heartstopper ones, but I'd seen the edits of Tori and I thought she was just so relatable and I absolutely loved her vibes. I'd recommend this book for young readers and anybody that is interested in the kind of high school dramas, little bit of mystery in it, good plot twists. So yeah, this book basically had a little bit of everything and I just felt it was perfect to a T. My second 5 out of 5 is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I read this book during summer and I actually seen someone on TikTok recommend it as a pretty good summer read. So I took this on holiday down to England with me while I was visiting some family, and it's basically a story which follows Lucy and Felix, who hooked up with each other on an island somewhere, and then they later discover that Felix is Lucy's best friend's brother, and they both know that they've hooked up. They both know who each other are and who Lucy's best friend and Felix's sister is in relation to each other. But it's basically a story about them trying to come to terms with what happened, trying to solve what to do now, deciding whether they should take it further, deciding whether they should just cut things off with each other completely, and also deep diving into personal lives as well. So this was a really cute summer read. I definitely recommend this one during summer just because it's set in like a kind of beachy coastal vibe as well. So yeah, this was a great little summer read. My next 5 out of 5 is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is also the first of a 3-part series which I've also got in my bookshelf from my birthday haul, which if you haven't watched, by the way, go watch it. This book follows a young teenager called Pip who is doing a project for her school, and in her project she's basically deep diving into a murder case that happened a few years back, and she ends up getting really into depth with it and ends up discovering who actually murdered this girl called Andy Bell. I'd recommend this one for young readers or anyone that's into crime and mystery, just because I literally felt like I was a detective in this book. There's literally some pages of like production logs where like Pip's trying to like piece together information in the case and pinpoint where exactly like things are going and things could lead. This book is filled with plot twists, absolutely filled with it to the brim. And the ending that you expect is going to happen is not at all what's going to happen. Yeah, definitely recommend this one as a good read. My last book that's a 5 out of 5 that I read this year was Hot Girl Summer by Sophie Gravey. If you recognise her name, I'm pretty sure she also wrote A Glasgow Kiss, which I haven't read but I'm wanting to. But basically this was one that I'm pretty sure she released this year, and it follows the story of 3 best friends, Ava, Rebecca and Grace, who are all at different stages in their life. One is a young mother, another is an aspiring photographer, and another is basically just a stay-at-home wife. And there's all these different parts of their own personal stories that they're just not happy with. So they decide to come together and make sure that they have the best hot girl summer they can. This is such a cute book about friendships and love, just any relationships in general, and about how strong girlhood can be, and that are just so powerful, that come together and are able to face any challenges that any of them encounter. So yeah, this was my last 5 out of 5 for this year. So this is my haul of everything I read in this year. I'm honestly super happy that I managed to complete my goal, and I've not wrote down any of my goals yet for next year, but I definitely think I want to try and push myself for 15, maybe even 20 books next year. Like I said, if you're into reading as well, then you should go and follow my Goodreads down below. Today's question of the day is, do you regret anything about going to university? When I first started uni, I did find it was a really big jump from high school to uni. There were some points where I regretted not going to college first after school, just because it was like a really big jump, and I know it obviously is going to be, and I'm happy I've stuck in with uni, because I do think like it was the right decision for me. But at the time when I was in first year, I was just really struggling with the workload and just like how different things were, and because I hadn't done criminology or sociology in school, I felt like I was literally just thrown into the deep end, and everybody else around me knew what was going on, and I was just sitting there waving my arms for help. One regret that I still have, I don't know if I'm probably going to change it, just because I am going to be going into my 3rd year next year, which is absolutely crazy. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. But one regret that I do still have is not joining a society. In my uni vlog, I did suggest that if you're wanting to make friends in your first year, to join one. But with me commuting, all the societies were usually on like times that I just couldn't make. They were like usually really late at night, and basically if I had decided to join one, not only would I be paying for that membership for that community, but I would also be having to get home really late at night, which just wasn't a good fit for me. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I decided not to join any societies. But I do wish I did, because as much as I love my uni girls, and my best friend Olivia, if she's watching, which I don't think she would be, but I do think it would have been a good thing to like broaden out and meet new people as well. So yeah, that is the end of the video. If you want to send a question of the day, then there is going to be a Telegram link down below. If not, then you could always just leave a comment for question of the day. But I am in need of a few, because I didn't realise how quick this vlogmas thing is coming. So definitely please leave a question. It can honestly be about anything, whether it's advice or just a general question you want to ask me. I'm literally an open book. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!